Hi, it's Matt Kendall, and today I'm speaking to Nicole. Nicole has done my IEMT weekend twice. She most recently did it it was about a month or so ago, wasn't it? It was last month, I believe, where she came back and did a refresher. So I always allow people who have trained with me or with anybody else, actually, you can actually come back and do a refresher course. So again, it's just a conversation with somebody who's been through the weekend. They've experienced changes. Nicole has actually now done her case studies as well. So it's just to give you a realistic, basically, just a realistic sort of what it's like for somebody who hasn't used IEMT before, what it's like to actually sort of go out and use it, the experiences which they have, and just kind of see where it goes. So Nicole, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am very good. So let's get to it. So basically before IEMT, before you did the first weekend, which I think was probably about 2 years ago, I think.
It's 2016, I think.
2016, yeah. So just over 2 years ago.
No,
Did you?
2015.
I'm getting
Anyway,
old.
2015 or 16. I don't know where it goes. It flies. Terrifying.
So what made you sort of do the weekend course to start off with? What did you know about IEMT? What was your experience with working with people? And
So nothing in terms of previous knowledge of IEMT, but I was on your mailing list for the interesting talks, and this one suddenly I decided to read, and just it really just spoke to me. So like lots of people, I trained in Reiki years ago. I actually was focusing on acting for a long time, and then in recent years I've decided to actually train. So I've trained in last year in hypnotherapy and past life regression and all of that, but the IEMT was just another way to sort of build on the existing skills I had, because it's particularly of interest to me to help people overcome present struggle or past trauma to be their happiest selves. That feels like my calling, something I understand very well and what fulfills me. So yeah, it's been fascinating.
okay, so you did the course again nearly about 3 years ago, and then you did it again recently. Now you experienced some changes yourself, especially on the second course, if that's correct.
Yeah, so I've got, lots of self-help tools that I know of. So I know of EFT tapping, some might know it called as. And there'd been a big looming decision that's, in the top build. You're going to get stressed if you do X, Y, Z. It's up there in the top 3. And I could tell that consciously I was quite happy about this endeavor, but subconsciously I was doing self-hypnosis and tapping and still just not sleeping, not awake with thoughts about this thing. But what I noticed when we worked on it on the refresher weekend, I just very quickly could feel everything sort of mixing and swirling and settling down. And then that night I just slept, and I thought, ooh, okay, something really big has shifted. And so I'd seen it work on other people, but that was the big aha moment personally. So
excellent. No, that's great. So, because obviously when you do the weekend, you will experience personal change because you're doing the exercises on each other. And I think on yours there's about 12 people or something, and you do about 8 or 9 exercises over the weekend, maybe a few more actually. So you will experience personal change, because I think that if you are going to be a practitioner of something, you should experience what it's like yourself, because that will make you a better practitioner because you understand what it is. So the weekend itself, how did you find the training? Did you enjoy it? How useful did you find it? What was it like going through it as a participant?
I think both times I enjoyed it, but I think also the second time I got different things from it. And I think it depends on how receptive you are and how good at amassing all the knowledge or different elements of the different prongs of the technique, if you like, stood out more, or I got more aha moments of it. And like you say, I agree. I think it's really important that there's practical exercises, because obviously we're working one-to-one quite closely.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we hold safe space as a therapist to understand when you're just invading someone's field or establishing. So obviously this is finger movements, and where establishing that safe distance, that even though you explain all this, it's only when you do the practicals that you realize how it feels, and you can get feedback and just all of your finesse, your technique before you are let loose on the world. So it's a really nice way of doing it.
Excellent. I try to make it very exercise heavy. So I teach something, demonstrate something, and then you get to try it out straight away. And hopefully it's quite so straightforward. I have changed how I train, actually. Like the second time you came to it, it's probably quite a bit different to the first time. It's just because I've done it more times and taken feedback and changed the training for it. So once you did the qualified this time, well, when you will qualify, you went and did your case studies. And if you want to be a practitioner, you need to go out and work with some people. There's like a feed, how you basically fill a form out on the way back, which I will then go through, and I go through with the person. So we haven't done this yet, but you have actually done your case studies. So what was it like using IEMT with people? What was it like? What were the results like?
Very interesting. Both the people I worked with, they'd done hypnosis with someone I knew, and there were certain shifts. One has had heaps and heaps of trauma and is a real trooper. So she's been very good at kind of burying it and just going, oh, it's okay. And now she's in a very committed space to her healing journey, if you like, because the addiction to drama, the problematic relationships, having very young children, all that has calmed down. So she's actually got space to allow these unhealed hurts to come up, because they need attention, so she can let go of them and move forward. So it seemed like a really great optimum time for her to have this work, and it's been fascinating. What came out of it for her was, so obviously the experience of feeling problematic feeling states changing, and memories having less of a grip, but she became very aware of the patterns that had emerged in her life. So that was very beautiful, because if you're really listening to someone, you can get that, okay, so this is a theme. When was this the first time, or is that, how familiar is this? And so we covered lots in different ways than obviously the hypnotherapy had, when it's just that person's subconscious leading it. So in terms of the relief someone can get from their mental process, and how they're labeling, identifying themselves, other areas, aspects of their life, problematic relationship, whatever it is, it just feels really, you can kind of have this laser focus and work very quickly to resolve things.
And was she surprised on how effective it was as well? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I often get this when you're working with a client, because a lot of the time they're used to therapy not working. And so when you do IEMT, it's like, oh, this is a visceral change straight away, and it's sorry, I cut you in. So sorry, what were you going to say there? Sorry.
So just to further to that, so one was a lady and one was a gentleman, and the gentleman, he's been quite open to things, and traditionally guys are a bit more skeptical about doing certainly the healing, because I do healing and sound healing as well, but he was shocked at the way it almost felt like a wave, because you're obviously being very brave to focus in on those feelings as you're doing the finger movements, and he could just feel it just roll away like a wave, very, very clearly and identifiably. And then the work where we go into, you'll probably talk about this more, but the problem state versus where the problem doesn't exist, and almost having to force him to jump back into the problem with the physicality. And he was like, wow, gosh, it's as simple as that. Making that choice, because we get so conditioned by everything around us, but
Yeah.
by ourselves and don't know necessarily,
Mm.
you know, how to reach for that happier thought or state, or how we get there. And it's actually amazingly habitual. It's
Absolutely. It's if people are kind of confused, when we do the weekend training, we do obviously all about the eye movements, the different types of eye movements, but then we have a couple of other exercises that I teach you, which is part of the training, which are to do with physical state accessing cues. And that's more of a physical thing. It's kind of a bit weird to try and describe, but we do some other things as well. So it's not just, you don't just learn about the eye movement, you learn about some other techniques to use, and then all of them together is like the suite of tools that you get from the weekend. And have you spoken to these people since you did the work with them at all?
Yes, so I did. I checked in, but obviously for the second session,
Yeah.
both of them I've seen twice. The second, not one. Well, yeah, both in the last sort of 5 days, but they've been just very surprised at how these very bothersome issues don't seem to be overwhelming them or making them feel powerless, and just a lot more optimistic. So it's exciting.
It is. And what I really love about IEMT, while you don't need to go into any detail with people about what the problems are, you don't need to go into the content of their story, you're just removing the negative memories, associations, conditioning, identities, the memories. You're using, because IEMT doesn't work on emotion, it works on memories that are producing the emotion, but you use the emotion to get there. And the thing is, when you actually start to relieve people of these thoughts, feelings, and ways of being, everything just is okay. And you can actually start to do different things with your life because you don't have all these these emotional barriers in place anymore. You remove the charge. It's almost like someone said, it's like turning the electric off on the electric fence. You can now actually go through it. You can do something. It's still there, but I mean, sorry, I've got some hooligan outside. Go away, it's Muswell Hill. Awful people. They don't live here. They're just passing through on a motorbike. So this is what I love, because a lot of therapy, especially like the NLP sensational therapies, like that, tend to be about empowerment and making you feel great. But unfortunately, that's not sustainable. And what happens is you feel great, but then you feel crap. You have to feel really, really good. But then obviously, the higher you go, the lower you fall. With IMT, it's like just bringing you back up to normal. That's all. So it's stopping people feeling bad as opposed to trying to empower them. But when you can stop people feeling bad and feeling bad about themselves with their self-beliefs and their negative identities, they can then start to change what they're doing, and then they will start to feel really good about themselves because they are changing what they do, not just changing how they feel. And I find that provides the best overall change.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about empowerment, because I think by having that experience, it is an empowering experience to realize that you are, you're a sensitive being that's going to be affected by good, bad in different experiences, but they don't have to own you.
Absolutely.
And with a bit of help, we can get beyond that shit loop of I am only this, and I've got to be a victim, or I can't X, Y, Z. So yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. And it's getting people out of those loops by seeing what patterns they're presenting, and then using IEMT on the precise little moment, so they don't have to keep doing the same thing, and they don't have to keep feeling worse or more frustrated. And when you were doing IEMT on these, on the people, did you find it relatively easy? What was it like actually doing it?
Yes, I found it easy. I think some people are more attached to their stories and they want to tell you the whole thing,
Yeah.
which can obviously take up a lot of time. So it was having to be quite strict to say, okay, we just need to give it a label and
Yeah.
how intense are these images or the video, or are the colours bright and the sound deafening, or do you see yourself? And just trying to kind of stick to the process. Because it isn't, as you say, it's not counselling.
No.
Whilst it's important for people to feel heard, this is change work. So it's about, to me, it's about getting stuck in and delivering that change that is possible with it. I think the most incredible experience I had with it was a couple of years ago. So a friend approached me because her daughter was only 10 and had become so depressed she was suicidal after a sexual assault involving a couple of boys who were actually neighbors, sons, friends, and they decided to take their experimenting too far. And she hadn't told her mum, wasn't sleeping, was suicidal. And I used IEMT, and I had to be very diplomatic because I didn't want to add to her shame.
Of course.
And even though she knew she was coming to me for help, I had to make out that I didn't know what I knew, right? So it was very interesting that I had to kind of go, well, maybe there's something that made you sad. Maybe there's something that made you mad, and approach it like that. But because kids, because their frontal cortex it's not so formed, they can just shift so quickly. So sometimes on adults, you might do 2 rounds for the intensity to diminish. There was a moment where they brought their puppy and it had fallen off the sofa. So obviously we just all erupted into hilarity. And I was thinking, oh no, but I haven't done round 2. But when I checked in with her to see what it was, it had already gone to, there's something that happened. And her mum reported that she'd slept that night. She was smiling again the next day. She was back, which was
brilliant.
Just wow.
Excellent.
So
that's amazing.
That was really heartwarming.
And there was another case as well with the person who got in the terror attack. You help?
Yeah. So someone else. So again, this was after the first course I did a year and a half ago, I think. I'd actually put out a thing on Twitter, I think it was, but because not many people follow me on Twitter yet. It was actually someone I knew from a social circle, and she'd been caught. She was actually on a date in one of the London Bridge restaurants, and the police came in and went, "Everybody get down!" And so she just, what shall I do? Ran off to the loo, thinking that the toilet would be a safe space. But she got caught in the skirmish of everybody trying to bundle through those doors. So she'd actually fell and hit her head and had concussion. So woke up absolutely bewildered with still this crazy chaos and unfamiliar people around her also panicking, and
of course,
that the vibe of fear when it spreads is strong, right? So she was really, really jumpy and really and obviously we talked and she revealed this, and I said, well, let me let's use IEMT to see if we can help again break that loop of being in the I'm gonna am I, as if it had just happened.
Of course.
People have been very over traumatized, it's they're constantly red alert looking over their
absolutely
shoulder, and again it gave her massive relief, and that hypervigilance kind of gradually settled and more ease. So
and her quality of life, I should imagine, has improved greatly since.
Because of course if you go to the doctors, they're likely to offer you some pills, which is just masking over something that can be addressed.
And you know what, it's a hard debate, is this one, because I think the NHS is a brilliant service and doctors do an amazing job, but one of my good friends is a GP, and he says, like, we have a slot is 10 minutes. What can we do in 10 minutes? No. And so, yes, we can refer you to counselling or for therapy, or we can medicate you. But again, medication is just covering the issue. It's not really dealing with what's causing it. And going for therapy, sometimes you might get 6 sessions of CBT, but you might have to wait a year to get on it. With IEMT, it's incredibly fast. It's incredibly effective. Anybody can learn it. You don't have to be a doctor, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist. Although I do get doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and a neuroscientist coming.
Brilliant.
And what it is, I want more people who are therapists already who want to come and use this, come and learn this, because it's such a great tool to have in your toolkit. So yes, you might be a counselor or a talking therapist, or even my background was hypnotherapy, or a coach, absolutely. And having this as a tool will improve your results dramatically without having to force people to do that. Especially with a lot of coaching is about trying to get somebody to do something. With IEMT, you can do that by breaking down the emotional barriers of what's stopping them, and your results will skyrocket. They really will.
Yeah, I've had people come to me for hypnotherapy sessions, and actually I've thought that charge of that I can't what the situation is actually, and I'll have done some IEMT before we do hypnotherapy for the other issues.
Yeah,
it just feels an easy to slot in modality.
Yeah, that's what I do. If somebody has anxiety or something, I can't really hypnotize somebody anyway if they're suffering from anxiety and stress, because they're stressed and anxious. So I will often do a bit of hypnotherapy right at the end, because I do different things. But yeah, so I think it works well. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today. For those people who are watching in the YouTube land or on my website, who are either coaches, therapists, or mental health workers, or somebody who's wanting to get into this kind of work, what do you have to tell them about IEMT, and why should they do it?
So some people have heard of EMDR. I think EMDR is, I don't know that much about EMDR. I just know that it's bandied around and it's what, from the 80s, 70s, 80s?
I believe it's the 80s. I believe it was about 84.
Yeah.
About something like that.
I think the training is very expensive. I can highly recommend Matt as a trainer, and it is quite reasonable, very highly monitored. He's going around the group, making sure that we're doing things correctly, explaining things when we're stuck, all that good stuff that you expect and need when you're learning something. You end up with a whole group of people that you can then swap with each other to perfect or work on new personal change, or who might be able to help you get the case studies.
Yes.
And so, just as above, it really works, and it works fast, and it's very easily slotted into whatever other areas people are helping people with in.
Can I ask you, going forward now with IEMT, what kind of people are you going to really focus on helping? What's your niche in that sense?
So the theme that I get from my clients I call my venture Have Your Magic, as in, don't have your rubbish life, have your magic, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's about being your best self. So I tend to get people who've had quite a lot of trauma, who needed to do kind of inner child work, which again with hypnotherapy it goes deep and it goes far into that integration. But I think the patterns that you're still experiencing as a grown-up, IEMT's super helpful for. So I think it's a nice come at each angles approach with that. So I particularly enjoy working with young people, and I tend to also get people who are very sensitive, empathic, quite psychic. They've got all these incredible gifts, but no one's really taught them how to manage their energy, to manage their sensitivity and protect, be in their energy, ground, make that work for them as the gift that it is, rather than just make everything overwhelming and be affected by everybody's stuff. So
excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'll see you on the Facebook groups and the association, and I look forward to hearing how you use it.
Thank you.
Thank you.